Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for Monday, the 11th of October, 2021. Well, I got pretty much all the way through this and it froze. So if that happens again, you'll see that happen, and what I'll do is I'll just stop and I'll continue. I'll start again, but I'll start at that point, and then I'll hook them together, which I actually learned how to do. And it may not, I mean, you'll see it'll be obvious that I did that, but that's okay. I'm going to keep the cards. I have not done the card that challenges or the card that benefits. So we have that. I also have the runes already done, and I'm going to keep that because I'm already in that mode. So we'll just take a look at everything and see how this goes. See if this thing freezes on me, or if I'm going to have to, do another one to end it. I don't know. Mercury retrograde, and it's a Monday, so. Happy birthday to one of my daughters-in-law today. We share a birthday month, also with her husband, my son. So mine's on Wednesday. Hers is, so we're 2 days apart. Not in years, of course, but So anyway, I hope you all had a good week last week. I hope you had a good weekend. We are still harvesting. I think I've been drying tomatoes. I chop them up every day, and I do 9 trays every day. I'm getting really fast at it, though. I can usually knock that out in about an hour, which, when I first start out the season, it's like, oh, geez. But anyway, the garden is done. Other than the carrots, I think we're going to dig those today. But the garden's done. The frost is here, and so, I think it's supposed to get down to like 22 maybe tonight. I haven't checked to see if any of that's updated, but it's supposed to be super cold tonight. So some of my stuff I have on the deck I'm going to bring into the kitchen. I think I see some aphids on one thing, and I'm waiting for my Dr. Doom to show up on Wednesday so I can spray that before I bring them in for the winter, because it's some herbs I have out there that I want to keep, because I started growing them this year. I grew them from seed, so I don't want to lose them. Anyway, I guess that's it. Let's go ahead and talk about the runes. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. I hope you'll click subscribe and give it a like. If you like it. If you don't, then you don't have to give it a like. Anyway, we have Ewaz, which is the intuitive bond we share with others. It's self and the other side of self. It's Laguz, forward and reversed. It comes before Manaz, which is really the individual within society. So it's a little bit more complex than Ewaz is. But Ewaz you can think of in terms of the soul vehicle or the Merkaba. Because it can be used in astral travel trance work. Let's see, what else can it do? Binding toward mutual end, within the flow of spirit, love, harmony, all of that. That's really our natural state. When we focus into form, all that is just an aspect of the Creator, or the Great Mother, or the Sophia principle or frequency focusing into these bodies, basically, to then have an experience that's shared. And really Ewaz, to me anyhow, really depicts the idea of the self in others, or the self and the other side of self, because that's really all we're seeing. When we see all of this play out, it's helping to inform our experiences, but realistically it's us. It's just the individual. There's only one. So although we look fragmented and there's all these people, in truth, all this is everything we see is the other side of self playing out in front of our eyes. And these days it's questionable as to how that's going to look, isn't it? I just never thought that I would see what I'm seeing now, especially in the middle of a pandemic that continues and continues and continues. It's like, come on, can't we get through this together? We should be able to, but no. Nope, 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 nope. The geomancy rune today is Tristitia, or sadness and loss and grief and condemnation. It's considered evil in all things. Really a focus on ego, focus on the physical side of self, the physical experience, instead of staying in the collective aspect or collective consciousness. In other words, higher self vibration. Here, we're so focused on form. You can even see it. You can see it drawing down into form, basically. Passive influence on fire, air, water, and an active one on earth. So it's the earthly focus versus the spirit focus, basically. And then we begin the reading with the lovers, and there you're looking basically at the same thing, the same concept. Your major cards, we have another one, strength, in this reading. So far anyway, we've got 2 major arcana cards. And so these are soul archetypes. And it's letting us know what that, talking about the overall message behind how we're to view our experiences here in form. And with the lovers, we're talking about polarity, inner polarity. Also the expression of outer polarity. We see the angel above with the sun above the angel's head. The sun reflects the rays of the Creator, enlightening and illuminating. And on this 11th day, we have a master number 11 for illumination and awakening. So we need to awaken to the effect of the polarity we express, both inward and outward. We see Eve with her focus on spirit, on the angel. We see the tree of knowledge behind her with a serpent coiled around it. Now, and then we see the sparsely growing oak tree behind Adam. Adam is not focused on spirit, though, is he? He's focused on Eve. So he's focused on the physical manifestation instead of spirit. So again, how are we managing that polarity? Are we coming from the divine feminine presence of love and understanding and care and compassion and empathy? Or are we having too much of the masculine or projective side of self, be single-minded and single-focused and not really looking at the bigger picture? Again, with the lovers, let's see if there's anything else I'm missing on that. But basically, I think we're looking at polarity that is, we're talking about unification and integration. But how do we do that? Do we understand that through the eyes of the ego, or do we understand that through the eyes of spirit? So that's what I think that we're looking at with the issue with the lovers. Now, next we have card 8. Oh, and the 6 energy here of the card, the 6 numerology, that's harmony and shared path. So there's a sense of shared experience here that we have to figure out how to manage and how to balance. And that's going to take the inner strength of taming the wild within, or taming the ego. Here we have essentially spirit versus ego. Higher self-awareness versus ego, and the cyclical nature of that experience. It ebbs and flows. A biorhythm chart, when I did this before, I couldn't remember the name, but it's a biorhythm chart. You can look at the sine waves if you go and you put your birthday in, and you can see each day how your energy is flowing, and you're always going to see it in sine waves. So there's times you're going to be up, you're going to be down, right? So it'll show emotion. You can select what you want it to show usually, but usually emotion, intellect, spirituality, physicality. You'll see things like that. And so, if you're feeling like you can't get motivated, you might look at your biorhythm chart and say, oh, well, energy is low today, so I'm just not really going to, in other words, I don't have the physical reserves or the emotional reserves or whatever to really achieve what it is I'm wanting to achieve, and that's why things aren't working out for me on that particular day, right? So you can actually see the energetic flow of things in a biorhythm chart. And every time I see either waves, in the background on a tarot card, or I see a lemniscate or what have you. It really is showing that cyclical way that we exist. It's just the ebb and flow of things, just like the moon controls the tides, the ebb and flow of the tides. Well, we're mostly water, even though it doesn't feel like we are. We're mostly water, and so therefore, we're going to experience that same ebb and flow, all right? But when we think in terms of inner balance, both the Lovers and the Strength cards are really, they're really talking about the same sort of experience. We've got, let's see, a 5 energy here. 6 and 8 is 14. That reduces to 5. 5, and then the 9 of Swords. 5 and 9 again is 14, reduces to 5. So some change is happening today, some movement, some momentum maybe. Not just the shift into Capricorn at 10:15 this morning, a little over an hour from now. But here we're letting go of, in other words, we're dropping resistance in a way, and we're putting things in order, and we're letting go of our thoughts and our perceptions that really, we've taken a look at them. The nightmare's over. He's awakened. Again, aligning with the 11 energy for today. You see all the swords are in order. The swords, of course, is the air element. And there you're talking about reason and intellect and communication. And, given that we're in Mercury retrograde, we're dealing with issues regarding that. And so I think here, as we come into a more balanced polarity where we're taming the ego, where or we could even call this transmuting ego into spirit, we're letting go of perceptions that are earthly, that are physical based, that are ego based. We're getting them in order. We're holding our head because we're like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that way. And we're letting, and we can also put Tristitia above the 9, I think, where we're letting go of grief, maybe letting go of but that would be more water, I would think. But we're putting everything into perspective, aren't we? And we're waking up from whatever challenges not having it in perspective has been giving us. Let's take a look at the card that challenges us, as if this doesn't on its own. But I think that it takes great strength, great inner strength, to ignore the impact of the ego and the reactive impulses of the ego. It's almost like here the reaction's over, and everything's put into order. Perhaps the perceptions were maybe fostering some reactions that weren't, compassionate or in harmony with others, that in fact were more harmful to others. We see a lot of anger and vitriol, and it's all being spurred on by basically a smaller group of people that are trying to keep the agitation going. They're trying to keep the anger flowing, and they're getting people to the point where they see everybody as an enemy, and it's really become an us versus them experience. And so when you look at the Lover's card, if you think of that in terms of masculine or projective presence versus the feminine or receptive presence, you can see where you have people pushing their views in a very harmful and hostile and violent way on others. I saw a video of this man just right next to this woman who was protesting for abortion rights and reproductive rights, and an older woman, my age or older, right in my age group, and he's taller than she is, and he's in her face, and he hit her 3 times in the abdomen. And I guess I had read that she had I think she had a cracked rib or something from another time. I don't know. It happened, I don't know, a few days or a couple of weeks earlier. So she was injured. And she was out there, on I don't know if it was the day of the Women's March or when it was, but it may have been. And this man just came over and started yelling at her and hitting her. And I guess it's gone to the authorities. And so we'll see how that turns out if they prosecute the guy, because he deserves to be. But you can see where this woman is emulating the feminine or receptive side of self by peacefully protesting, and this guy can't let that happen. And so you see this polarity stuff between us completely out of whack right now, and it's causing great grief and tremendous loss that people are experiencing. So instead of the intuitive bond we share with one another, it's become something else entirely. So let's take a look at the third. Where I'm going to on the benefit and challenge cards. I look at the 13th one. So let me get the 13th card out, and we'll take a look at what the challenge card is. Because realistically, on the 9, it just seems like this person's ready for the perceptions to be more realistic, ready for things to end that are creating such drama in your lives. Well, we have the Knight of Swords. And believe it or not, I was thinking about this one. It's like we need swift justice. We need somebody to come in and say, no, stop. Now, he's going in with clear sight. He knows what he's doing. He has the upper hand here. Otherwise, I think that his visor here on his helmet would be down. Knights are passionate. They're on a quest. They generally... they have a lot of integrity, but they take command. There's always a now presence. Either the one that I would say might be different might be, let me think about this. The Knight of Pentacles. There you're looking at a larger dark horse. It's going in a different direction. It's going in the opposite direction, and his horse is I think it's black. And he's got a large coin, and it's like he's offering security and dependability and reliability to the people that he's serving, basically. But in this case, what the Knight of Swords is doing is he's taking swift action on behalf of others, defending, standing up on behalf of others. And I think that how we do that, especially right now when things are, things can be pretty volatile out there in the world. You have to be careful how you do that. And and to me, but the challenge is standing up for what you believe, even if you do it in a quiet way, even if you do it in a way that maybe others don't. You don't do it directly with direct interaction to others. That's what I mean by a quiet way. It's when you go to the grocery store and you're wearing a mask and you're not interacting with anybody, but you're wearing a mask. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting other people. Even if you've been vaccinated, they're recommending that. My husband and I still do. But I think that the Knight of Swords also, talks about integrity and accepting challenges. So I think that when you're looking at balancing the polarity within and letting go of perceptions that don't serve, realistically, isn't that what you're talking about? You're accepting the challenge to do that, to try to come into an awareness that's more, that's a higher frequency awareness that relies on higher self-awareness instead of the ego's perception of things. You have to understand the greater picture. And when you're so caught up in the ego of it all, there's no way to do that. When you can't see the essence of Ewas, the self and the other side of self, or the self in others, if you can't see that, if you can't, get up above it all and understand that, then the only thing you have left is grief and loss with Tristitia, because that's a total focus on ego. And ego is not something that's going to be relied on. It can't be, because it's so changeable. And again, we have a 5 overall energy for the reading. And that's change. I mean, it can be cause and effect. Freedom versus restriction. Projective versus receptive. Again, it comes back to the Lover's card, doesn't it? And also the card of strength. Taming the wild within. Taming the ego. Having higher self control the ego itself. And the ego's expression, the ego's experience, the ego's perception. Transmuting ego into spirit, basically. The benefit card then, the King of Pentacles. Well, I'll just tell you, I'm not a fan of any of the kings. The queens are fine, but here we have an successful older man, but unfortunately his back is to the kingdom. So let's just try to look at he's responsible and steadfast and loyal. If he's in his right mind and he's not thinking about only about himself, then you're looking at a guy who does think about the bigger picture and about his kingdom and everybody within it. You see all the abundance around him. He's got a scepter in his right hand and a coin in his left. It's a very busy card, isn't it? But there's a lot going on. And if we control our perceptions, basically, and we don't think in terms of what benefits the ego. In other words, if you take a service to others perspective, then I think that you understand and emulate and express the energy of ewas in your life, of flowing together in harmony with one another. I will reluctantly look at this card that way. Typically, I do not. Anytime I get a king, it's like, oh boy, what's he want? But I think that it could be simply that if you look at the King of Pentacles in terms of generosity, then what you have is a king that has balanced the masculine and feminine within. And instead of looking solely at the woman, maybe his focus is a little more on spirit, seeing that what his actions, how his actions can either impact the kingdom in a positive or negative way. So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday, what we get on Thursday, because I think that this expression of polarity right now is something that we're all really struggling with. Seeing the other side of self in others and not judging. Again, the woman that was marching on behalf of reproductive rights and women's rights, to be attacked by that man. And I mean, there was a bunch of people around, and nobody got into it with him. Nobody pushed him back. They didn't want to invite more, I would think. Sometimes doing that, but this woman was harmed. She was injured. Getting hit in the stomach 3 times, that's not okay. Depending on how hard he did that, it was enough. People were filming it. And again, this is a guy clearly that doesn't know how to act as the King of Pentacles, where he understands the greater message behind what's happening. If he doesn't agree with the sentiment, well, then fine. But you don't come up and you harm somebody as a result. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that. So we're seeing the polarity, the masculine and feminine, or projective and receptive polarities, so out of balance right now that the masculine side of self is feeling like so threatened by the expression of compassion and greater understanding, that they have to come out and they have to try to harm people. And they're not even just trying, they're doing it. They're harming people physically. So I think that once you tame the ego, once the higher self-control has control over the ego, which honestly I think is the true polarity that we need to deal with, not so much the masculine and feminine presence within, although that's a factor. I think the true polarity is spirit versus ego. And whether or not we can remember that we are in fact souls that inhabit these bodies, and we should be expressing ourselves from that higher awareness instead of devolving into madness, or tristitia, as it were, with the geomancy rune. Again, it's time to wake up. Allow today's 11 energy to illuminate our path, to wake us up, to awaken us to the truth of who we are as self and the other side of self, having a shared experience that we then take back and inform the collective consciousness with. So what are we going to be doing? Are we going to, let ego drive the ship, or are we going to let higher self do that? So anyhow, I think we did it, and I did it before my thing froze. So I'm going to go ahead and end this before it does. If it does, then you'll know that it's over for right now. We finished. We did it. We'll meet again on Thursday and see what else we have to add to this, or if we turn a corner. Usually, though, Mondays and Thursdays readings sort of align together. So anyhow, so stay tuned for that. Come back for that. Check out the forecast on the blog over at Stepping Aside at IamSteppingAside.com. Join me on Patreon if you'd like to do that. That's just $1 a month to do that. And over there, I post this as well, and then I do a write-up on it. So you can see that as well. Have a good day, have a good week, and be good to yourself, be good to one another. Express ewas in your life, in other words, and blessed be.